Hello and welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors. We're going to start stripping down the CB250RS engine. Now I say start stripping it down, it's already fairly substantially stripped. The top end is completely stripped, apart from the piston still being on the conrod. But I haven't had a proper good look at all the other sort of engine parts that came with it. And I also want to strip the crankcase completely down to the gearbox and such, and then have a wee poke around and see what possibly caused the piston issue. If you remember correctly from the project introduction video, the barrel has quite a big score in it, the piston has quite a lot of damage as well, so trying to basically locate whatever caused that would be quite good. Yeah, without further ado, let's get the engine up on the bench and start taking bits off it. As a side note, I actually have very expensive safety glasses that I always forget to put on, so I really should wear these more often. Might not be the coolest thing in the world, but I have been to hospital to get metal extracted from my eye before, and it's not fun. So if you ever see me in a video not wearing my safety specs, leave a comment, pull me up on it, because honestly it's the worst thing in the world going to get metal scraped out of your eye, and I paid good money for these, so I might as well use them. Today's video is sponsored by Lucky Saint. It's not really, I wish it was, because as far as non-alcoholic beer goes, it's cracking. Right, first of all, let's get it out of this bag. Right, so let's see what we're looking at. Let's just pop that breather pipe off. It's fine. Probably going to take the piston off as well. Out comes the circlip. Push the gudgeon pin out. So the gudgeon pin actually looks in okay condition. It's not, doesn't look like that's been the cause of the issue. Likewise, top of the conrod looks okay, which is what I would expect considering what the gudgeon pin looks like. Again, there is slight side to side play in the conrod, but I need to measure the end float between the end of the conrod and the crank. Are these studs going to come out easily? They are. Let's get them out. Right, so the next thing to do is to strip the stuff off either side of the engine. We'll probably be replacing all these casing bolts with stainless ones anyway. Okay, so I want to get the flywheel off. Have a wee quick look. The magnets all look like they're in good condition. That's good. A wee bit of surface rust on there, but nothing to be concerned about. Zip that off. Try and prevent any damage to the mating surface. Let's see if this does it. There we go. Okay. Beautiful. Easy peasy. So there's a little keyway woodruff key in the end of the crank here. I'm going to bag that because I can see that going walkies. Bag and tag. Crank. Beautiful. Alright, so trying to see where this is going to split. Alright, so let's get a bag for the shifter mechanism. I have a whole array of Ziploc bags for these exact reasons. Sometimes I even go so far as to double bag. Basically, if there's a little assembly like this, little roller here, that has a little 10mm bolt, and I'm putting it in a bag that potentially also has a 10mm bolt in it, I won't get them mixed up. Okie dokie, everything from this side that I can see as removable is now off. So let's flip the whole thing over. Okay, this is the kickstart mechanism in here, which will be behind the clutch. All this has just fallen off it, but it's okay. Get myself a little tie wrap. Keep them all together. So I'm going to get a nice big bag for the clutch. Front plate of the clutch. The thrust washer, no. So, see if I can just take the whole pack out. Like that. Noting that there's a wee ring that sits in there. And all that goes. Does that mean that this, yeah, so the whole clutch assembly lifts out. Big thrust washer in the middle with that there. Don't know if you can see in there, but this pin here has been fairly substantially worn away, and I think possibly worn into the actual casing itself. I don't really know what that's meant to look like, so I might get the manual out and have a look, see if I can find an illustration of that. But that doesn't look normal to me. The other thing to mention is back here. I don't know if I can get a better angle on that, but back there looks worn as well. I don't know if maybe the back of the clutch has been hitting that. Potentially. But like I say, there's a bolt here that has nothing on it. So I think there might have been some kind of cam chain tensioner or guide perhaps here, which is missing. This is the sort of guide slash tensioner for the back of the engine, which goes into there, and that's what that bolt was holding on. So that would go into there. And then there's a front cam chain guide as well that goes in there. Now, if the cam chain is tensioned, my guess is that the cam chain has worn, or the tension has failed, the tensioner has failed, and it's been slapping itself against that pipe there. Now, having read into the manual a wee bit, this is an oil feed pipe, which is now knackered. So getting that out and finding a replacement could be tricky. I may be able to machine one that just looks like a machined pipe to me, but because of the burring on the back of it, it probably won't slide out the hole it was intended to. So there's a bit of work getting that out. I also noted a bit of damage to the back of this cam chain guide here. Looked like something had fouled it or clipped it, but from where it goes into the engine here, I can't really see what that would have been. So that's an odd one. Yeah, not sure about that one. And then I need to have a look at the back of the clutch and see what caused that. Now, bringing out the back of the clutch, it's worn away on each of these successive corners. Doesn't look critical, it doesn't look like the damage is too bad to this, but it's because it's been basically clipping the casing there. The question then is, why? You know, if everything is where it should be, you'd have thought that would have clearance. So I'll pop the clutch back on and see if I could figure that one out. That certainly is an odd one. Back of the clutch is miles away from that. Yeah, I'm really not sure at all what caused that. Interesting blob of silicon in the oil pump. Never a brilliant sign. Okay. Here comes the oil pump. Right, was that removed? So this is the automatic timing adjustment. Uses centrifugal springs. As the engine speeds up and spins faster, the springs basically allow this to expand and it adjusts the timing on the points. Quite common in this type of engine, but very smart and simple engineering. So spring on the balancer shaft. Take that off as well, pop that in a wee bag. So that's pretty much everything off the sides of the engine, which would prevent me splitting the casings. The only thing would be, well, I've not basically taken the cam chain off entirely because I can't get this pin out yet. Once it's split in half, I've got better access to perhaps grind that pin out. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Next thing then is to flip the engine upside down. Well, put the right way up first, take out the bolts on the top, flip it upside down, separate the crankcases. Okay, that's all the ones out the top. Let's flip it over. And remove these ones. So there's 4 big bolts here and they basically sandwich the crankshaft. So these need to be slackened fairly uniformly. Right, so with the tension off them, whiz them out. So I think, as far as I can tell, that's all them out. So the casings have obviously also been siliconed together, so a bit of tapping with a mallet to get this loose, I imagine. You can just hear the tone change as the seal breaks. It goes from being quite a solid sound to a bit more hollow. So I started to release there. Just ease this off. Nice and gently. A dowel hanging on, I think. There we go. Oh, God. It's the selector drum. Jumped out there. That seems fine. Selector forks as well. So lift the crankshaft out. Crankshaft looks in reasonable condition, really, considering, but I need to measure the tolerance, the clearance between the thrust washers, because that to me feels ever so slightly too much play, but I could be wrong. This is also a pressed together crankshaft, so replacing the conrod is not the easiest thing to do. Going to take the balancer shaft out next. Just remove the circlip from the end. And then the whole balancer assembly slides out. Next thing is the input shaft. With the drive on it. All looks in relatively good condition. Bar any kind of oil starvation incident, gear boxes tend to be fairly bomb-proof and don't wear that heavily. So I will be checking all these, but immediate impressions are that it's pretty good. It looks pretty good. go. Likewise, bearings and thrust washers and all these things look fine to me. That seal will be getting replaced. It's a big old chunky seal, that. I'll leave it on there just now. Don't see any broken teeth or anything on the gears, so that's a bonus. Into the bag you go. Looks pretty immaculate to me. I'm going to be replacing the cam chain anyway, so I'm not too worried about nicking it, but I don't really want it in the way, frankly. Let's see if we can get this. Okay, that's through. Okay, I'm going to hang on to this because I'm probably going to make one on the lathe to replace that. Let's see if we can get the remnants out. So I'll zoom in a little bit. This is the damage I was talking about. Obviously I've just cut that. That was like that, but you can see this is an oil feed pipe that has obviously been fouled by the cam chain and worn away. So that is really not good. A little bit worrying as well with regards to oil starvation, because that feeds the head, the cylinder head. So that's worrying, because I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's the only way, looking at this, I think that's the only way oil gets to the head is through that pipe. Oh dear. So cam chain out. I'm going to replace the cam chain. I don't really know how old it is. Got no history on it. And because of the damage to that pipe, I think it has been running against it. Therefore, it's probably for the bin. So that's the casing completely stripped. Nice and light actually, doesn't weigh very much. Quite a small engine. Right, this guy. So this is the oil filter screen. There's some chunks of aluminium in that, which is no surprise given the damage to the upper casing from the cam chain. And here, so with that off, should be able to get the thrust washer off. that. This peculiar little triangle shaped washer thing, spacer. Now, I want to release the spring from its tang in here, like that. So that takes the pressure off the spring at the other end. And there we go. That's the spring off. That's a return spring, so when you operate your kickstart, that's what makes the lever go back round. So with that off, hopefully, there we go, the whole shaft can be extracted like that. And here you can see the kind of ratchet mechanism, so your kickstart can spin basically. Very cool. Right, so for safekeeping, again, I'm going to reassemble this. So that's basically the kickstart mechanism all in one. That means it can't be separated and lost. Next up is this little bracket in here, which hopefully will just whiz off. There we go. So I'm just going to bag the oil strainer as well. Something that's interesting that I've noticed that the camera probably hasn't picked up. I'll get my torch. I don't know if you can really see into there, but there's a lot of grey grime and silt. That to me implies that, well, doesn't imply, but it confirms that where the cam chain was rubbing, it has worn away material and deposited that material into the oil, and then it is obviously settled at the bottom of the engine. It's not ideal having bits of metal in your oil, because that oil obviously circulates around the engine, gets into things like bearings, and causes undue wear. I just have to hope that the oil strainer did its job and took out any big lumps, but you can see that silver, quite obvious aluminium dust that's throughout the oil. So that is really not ideal. A few bigger chunks, but the engine's been lying with the head off it for so long, I don't know if those chunks were in the oil or if they've fallen in the interim. Okay, either way, that's both the crankcases completely stripped. Just got the wee half moons here, the bearing retainers to pop out. That's all of them. Right, so obviously this will all be getting a good clean, but Now, my friend who I bought this bike from mentioned that when he took the top end apart, he noticed some significant wear on the cam. I'll zoom in and see if you can see this. I don't know if you can see the top crown of that cam is completely flat. It's been flatted off. This one not so much, but still has a lot of wear. That one's completely toast. Now, interesting that's happened. And then also if I look at the bearing surface here, that has a big gouge out of it, like the aluminium has started to melt or friction weld itself to the cam shaft. So that might be consistent with that oil pipe down the bottom of the engine, the one I had to grind out, being blocked off. The oil has been starved from the cylinder head and therefore caused that damage. I don't think it takes a detective to figure that one out. The good news is, there is good news. Good news is that he also gave me a spare cylinder head. Now, although this is quite dirty, it's actually in quite good condition. Although obviously the springs are a bit rusty, it's just surface rust. They'll clean up fine. I also have a spare set here on this engine, or the cylinder head. And the bearing surfaces here look infinitely better. They look nice and smooth. So, I also have a corresponding camshaft for this head, which, unlike this one, is not unduly worn. Well, saying that, it's not in amazing condition. Apologies for the change in audio quality. My lapel mic's just run out of battery. That camshaft is shot. It has a big, I don't know if you can actually see that, it'll show up in the camera, but there's a big lip there. That's going to be way past its best. Aye, that's frustrating. I wonder if you can get a new cam for that. New cam for that, and then if that head will still be usable. Like I said, the surfaces feel okay, so fingers crossed. I've just pulled out the rocker head, and it's a bit of a disaster as well. So that camshaft with the big flat spot on it, that has been caused by or has caused this damage to, or wear to, the rocker. Again, I'm not sure how well that's going to come out in the camera, but that is toast. The other one is worn but not bad, but that one is really bad. So that explains why that's so bad, or at least they each explain each other basically. The bearing surfaces on this rocker head don't feel great either. Yeah, that's no good. No bueno. Same with that one. Whereas that one feels fine. That is not okay. Okay, well, that's a bit of a disaster. That rocker head is scrap, along with the rockers. That's not good. Not good at all. Yeah. What to do, what to do, what to do. Right, well, I can take these off for starters. There we go. So that's not good. Obviously the cam chain issue, having worn that oil pipe out, looks like it's caused quite a lot of issues at the top of that engine. Could be why the piston has done the damage it's done, potentially. I'm not 100% convinced about that, because the piston's oil feed basically comes from splash. But nothing is out with the realms of possibility. Again, I've not measured the end float or anything of the con rod, which might give me a better idea of if that's worn out as well, because that, you know, would more likely cause that damage to that piston and the score in the cylinder. But the real elephant in the room is the fact that the cylinder head, camshaft and rocker head are scrap. I was just thinking, even though I had that spare cylinder head, I think the upper part, so the rocker cover, is machined together with the cylinder head, so without the corresponding rocker head for that cylinder head, I don't think you'd be doing a very good job bolting them together, because that kind of bearing surface that the camshaft runs on potentially, you know, wouldn't be a matching pair, the upper or lower parts. So I guess I'm going to have to go online and see what the availability is like for these parts, what the cost is like for these parts, and then weigh up my options. Do I try and pick up another engine to take parts from? Is this a candidate for an engine swap? I saw a few comments in the last video about I can't remember what engine it was, but an engine swap that is common for these bikes, so potentially there's an idea there. It's just frustrating because, like I kind of said last time, I didn't want this to be a big job. I just wanted it to be sort of put the thing back together, neaten everything up, make it look nice, rebore the engine was the biggest job I could think of. But growing arms and legs a little bit there after taking the engine to bits. So yeah, not the healthiest engine I've ever seen. So I'm going to have to weigh up my options, like I say, and figure out what the best solution is. It's never easy, is it? As usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're enjoying this Honda CB250RS content, then yeah, please do subscribe, because you'll be kept up to date with whatever I end up doing. Take care. Goodbye. better go have a look on eBay.